Welcome to Never Outdated, the podcast for technology and business leaders who want to stay ahead and stay relevant as we enter the AI era. I'm Amit Singh, and today we're talking about something that comes up in far too many conversations with business leaders that I want to challenge and hopefully shift your thinking on. And it's that feeling that they're falling behind. Someone said to me recently, I know I should be trying to use AI more, but I'm just not getting to it. I'm just a bit behind. And I hear that rather from CEOs and CIOs and founders of businesses who are smart people. They're successful people, and they're people with a lot of business and transformation experience. And here's what I think. They're not really behind at all, not in the way that they think. First of all, artificial intelligence has been around for decades and decades. So if you feel like you need to go back and learn everything about it from algorithms to transformer architectures, then yes, you're behind. But you and I both know that you don't need to know what GPT stands for to be able to use ChatGPT. And with a little playing around, you can start doing some really valuable things with it. Most people, most of you have done at least this. And then I think you get overwhelmed with the thought that you've only just scratched the surface and you don't know enough of the detail under the hood to be able to do truly meaningful things with it. Does that sound familiar? The feeling is that you need to learn and stay on top of each new model that comes out, GPT-5 or things like Claude Skills, or, what about DeepSeek and where does N8N fit in, and what about Copilot and what's Microsoft doing with that? And I'm here to tell you that you don't really. In fact, I think you're way ahead of people who are working on mastering those details but don't have the years of unique business experience that you have. Think about it. If you've ever mapped like a messy business workflow or cleaned up handovers between teams or figured out how to get two systems talking to each other, that's actually process logic, and that's exactly how AI thinks. So in my case, the penny dropped when I realized that the skills I developed early in my IT career, building SOEs, yes, I was an SOE guy, an app packaging guy, if that means anything to you, was incredible training for working with AI today. So, just to put a bit of perspective and color into it, what I did for a living very, very early in my career, 20 years ago, was I was a guy who built SOEs, which meant making sure that every time an employee turned on their computer for the first time and every time since, they had all the applications and access to all the data and systems that they needed to be able to perform their specific role. And that included really understanding the logic behind how it all came together and the workflow that needed to come into fruition for them to be able to get access to these things safely and securely and in a way that was compliant to company standards. Back then, I might have been a little bit more focused on the tech and obsessing over how the logic, make sure the logic and the task sequences were perfect. But I was aware of the business problem I was solving. And I was aware that this process had to work and the impact on the business if it didn't work or if it was inefficient. I also had to know and understand what the workarounds had to be, which weren't always technical workarounds, but there may have been manual and business-oriented workarounds. And so what that was AI training in disguise. And I'm sure you've done similar things as well, where you were, in some way, shape, or form, like I was, teaching yourself the logic or the structure, or how to structure logic and optimize a process. The only difference is now a machine can handle a lot more of the grunt work than what we had to do back then. But that's the secret that most leaders miss. AI doesn't really replace your thinking, it multiplies it. So another example would be is if you've ever built a business case or run a forecast. You've been teaching your brain to model scenarios. You've looked at inputs, you've made assumptions, you've tested sensitivities. That's literally what predictive AI does. It just does it a lot faster with a lot more data. Another example from my past, I used to run forecasting meetings where we'd spend half the time arguing about how to interpret what the data was telling us. Now I can feed all that data in an AI tool and ask a question like, what happens if we push back delivery of that project by 10 days, and I can get an instant projection. And that's the point. AI still needs someone who understands why those 10 days matter. It needs someone who can interpret the results and then decide what to do about it. And that's you, that's the leader. That's the human still leading the process. And AI just helps you get there a lot quicker. So you might have fixed a clunky process in your past, something that should be simple, but somehow takes 10 approvals and 3 spreadsheets and an email chain. And you may have looked at something like that and thought, there's got to be a better way. Now, that's what I'm talking about. That's the same instinct that drives effective AI adoption. AI is brilliant at spotting patterns, but it takes a human to decide which patterns actually matter. I worked with a client who used AI to predict late deliveries, but it only worked because an operations manager, not a data scientist, knew which signals actually meant trouble. And that knowledge didn't come from code, it came from years of experience and intuition. And again, that's the hidden value that most leaders overlook. AI needs your context because without it, it's just maths and algorithms and things like that. So if you've ever spent hours buried in reports trying to piece together what's really going on, you've already been doing the kind of structured analysis AI is built for. You look at data, you spot patterns, you test a few assumptions, and you adjust course. That's the same feedback loop that AI uses. It's just, for you, it's a bit slower and you need a lot more coffee to get through it. I know someone in a large organization who described what their month-end process looked like. Every team would get like a stack of static reports, dozens of PDFs and spreadsheets showing a slightly different slice of the business, but none of them quite told the full story. So in that organization, every manager had to do their own detective work, stitching together numbers from different pages, trying to find patterns or explanations. And what he said was interesting. He said it was like a mental juggling act. To answer even a basic question like, why are the costs up this month? He'd have to look at 3 separate reports and cross-check figures and build his own spreadsheet just to see what might be connected. And it wasn't that the data was wrong. I mean, obviously you need to have good data. And in this case, they had the data. It's just that the insight behind it was trapped. And now being able to use natural language tools to be able to interrogate that data directly is an absolute game changer. So you can just ask a question, you can type, show me what's driving the cost increase in region A, and it comes back instantly with a clear answer, plus links to all the supporting numbers. Yeah, of course, there's a bit of nuance there. You have to be careful about, hallucinations and things like that. But that's the technical detail that comes. It's about the problem that you're solving in the first place and the logic. Being able to, solve the problem of having to cross-reference 20 pages of documents and second-guess things. Solving that problem where humans can make errors is what the thinking is about. That's the skill set that people need to develop. The technical how of how to do it, that comes later, and that's quite frankly, in some cases, the easy part. So when it's done right, it's not about replacing people, learning the technical tools or anything like that. It's about thinking how you can actually create new value with the business that you already have and the processes that you might already have. So I get it though. A lot of the reasons why so many leaders fall behind isn't because they're not really capable. It's because it seems like to them that everyone else has already kind of figured it out. And their peers are sharing AI wins on LinkedIn, and competitors are running pilots. And meanwhile, their leadership and executives are asking tough questions about ROI and expecting clear answers. And so it's not like panic, but it's pressure. That sense that you should already know more and be doing more and have something concrete to show. But here's the thing: the biggest wins in AI are still coming from leaders who know their business inside and out and can ask better questions. So if you're one of those people thinking, I just don't have time to get into this, here's my advice. Don't, don't just get into AI. Start by solving a problem you already care about, something where your instinct tells you there must be a better way. And then see if you can get AI to give you a little help along the way. So if you're preparing for if client proposals take a long time, then think about how you might optimize and streamline that process. What would good look like? What's the time frame in which this should be created, and what are the inputs that are needed to create what kind of outputs? And then think about how AI might be able to help you. Or if you're if you need to build a report, think about the data that you need behind the report, and think about the kinds of insights and the trends, or whatever it is you're trying to visualize, and think about the problem that actually solves. And then now you may have an AI use case there, and then come down to what technology you might use and how you might use it. And you're not wasting your time this way, because if you do it this way, you can't lose. If you end up better articulating the problem that you have and then coming up with a solution with or without AI, you're still ahead. It's still a win. So you can't lose in that case. You don't really need a roadmap just yet. You just need a lot of curiosity and just a few minutes here and there to test a few things out, maybe ask a few questions, reach out to your networks to see if someone can help you with a specific use case, or someone's already achieved a specific use case that you are thinking about. So the biggest shift here isn't a technical one, it's a mental one. It's realizing that AI isn't something out there, but it's already woven into the work that you do, and that you've been preparing for this for years. You just didn't call it AI. So this isn't about catching up, it's about cashing in. So the next wave of leaders won't be defined by the ones who know the most about algorithms. They'll be defined by the ones who connect AI's potential to business value the fastest with clarity and confidence. And that can be and should be you. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I'm behind, stop and remember this. If you can think critically, spot patterns, and ask smart questions, you're already ahead. You've been training for AI all along. Anyway, that's it for today's episode of Never Outdated. If this hit home for you, or if you've had a hidden skill surprise in your own AI journey, I'd love to hear about it. Drop me a message on LinkedIn, or chat to me directly in my free school community, which is called the AI Leadership Academy. I'll link in the show notes a link to that community and to my LinkedIn. And until next time, stay ahead and stay relevant.